AI isn't just transforming tech, it's making its mark across industries. One industry already seeing change, payments and retail. We've seen the likes of Walmart, Shopify, Etsy, and Lowe's partnering with OpenAI to integrate AI tools into the shopping experience. Let's bring in a key name in this sector, Max Levchin, the CEO and founder of Affirm. He also co-founded PayPal, and he is a prominent venture capitalist through his firm, Sci-Fi VC. Max, so great to spend some time with you as always. Thank you for doing this, coming to us, I believe, from another country in London. So thank you so much. So
a country in the United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom. Okay, there we go. I appreciate the correction. So one thing we have not talked about, Invest, we've talked about how AI is impacting sports, how AI is impacting Bitcoin. We haven't talked about how AI is going to impact the shopping experience. So let us have it. How will it impact it?
You know, the jury's still out. It's happening right before us. And so it's a little hard to make perfect predictions. It is the case that we already live in a world of agentic commerce. So today, when you fire up your favorite grocery shopping app, e.g. Instacart, you're telling an agent to go buy things for you. You're trusting a human in this case, but doesn't really have to be a human, does it, to go and refill your fridge or get the food that you're fully trusting a quality control and a payment to occur entirely outside of your hands. And so as humans, we are prepared for a sort of fully outsourced shopping experience from the desire all the way to consumption, handled entirely by a system, maybe by machines. The thing that we're talking about now, I think the most interesting part of agentic commerce coming our way, is this notion of AI chatbot, presumably that's kind of the most likely manifestation, becoming a trusted partner in your research, which happens today. I speak with ChatGPT about all sorts of things that I may or may not buy later, closing that last moment of, all right, now let's go buy that. And the question is, how far are you willing to let control go, where you say, we've talked about, I buy a lot of bicycle parts, being my favorite other thing to do, ride a bike. Will I ever say, okay, robot, you go get me that bike? These things run very expensively. I take a lot of effort into figuring out exactly just what I want on my bike, in my bike. Will I fully let go? And I think we will gradually get there. Within payments, of course, the most important question ends up being things like, all right, so let's say we get there. Let's say you trust your chatbot to fulfill whatever it is that you've just chatted it up about. What happens when you don't like it? What happens if you're unsatisfied with a product? Who gets to bear the responsibility of the return, for example? Is it the chatbot that screwed up, or was it you? And so there's just a lot of really interesting questions that are starting to emerge in these conversations about agentic shopping. And of course, the more agentic, the more outsourced, the more the fuzzy the area of, well, okay, so you really have nothing to do with this purchase. You trusted an agent. Does this agent have a power of attorney that you gave it implicitly, or is it explicit? Does it have to be explicit? And so, we're at Affirm, obviously we're right in the middle of trying to think all this stuff through, but it's a fascinating new world.
Max, I'll just say, so this is kind of scary. I still like going to an Amazon or Walmart, clicking on a link and buying myself something. What's the risk of putting all our eggs in one basket with these agents? These agents sound like they're about ready to run amok on the internet if they haven't already.
Definitely going to go through some interesting speed bumps, I have no doubt. But you and me both. I very much like my local bike shop experience. When I go see a human mechanic that is a true expert, they will talk to me about the thing that I need, but also maybe enlighten me about a couple of things that I want. And therein, by the way, lies one of the more interesting puzzles vis-a-vis retail. So everyone who's ever worked in a store or run a shop, online or offline, understands a very, very important truism, and that is the second sale is the one you want. The first sale is the hardest. You need to attract someone to your store. You need to persuade them to trust you, to sell you the thing. You sell them this thing, and if you are good, if you really deliver a great service, if you deliver a great product, you can expect a returning customer. And that returning customer is what you want. In this sort of internet jargon, there's no longer a CAC. That first transaction, you must have advertised for it. You must have expended some effort trying to get this person to trust you. Once you have fulfilled the transaction once, the second one is much easier, and that's where the profits are made. And so in the world of agentic shopping, one of the things that we can anticipate is the relegation of the store to much more of a fulfillment role, where the chatbot is the one that helped you pick, which is great because it might create a totally new distribution channel for retail, and I think it will. But will retailer in question actually get that easier second sale? Will you know which bike shop online did you order that part that ChatGPT helped you select? And I think that's a question that is going to necessarily resolve itself over the next several, I was going to say years, but given the speed of AI, maybe months. But that is maybe the most important one. How will retail adapt to this new world where the transaction happens entirely or primarily inside the bot? I don't think local bike shops or Amazon or Walmart.com are going anywhere. I think many of us, myself included, actually quite delight in this process of interacting with retail, finding out what's new, seeing new products being shown, some things that I didn't even know existed. And so this discovery process is, that's part of the shopping, that's entertainment. And so I suspect that's not going to go away. Agents aren't going to completely replace us in that process. But we are going to reinvent discovery. We are going to care a lot about what does this mean for the second transaction, third transaction.
For those retailers that can't adapt, Max, is the reality that they're just not going to exist anymore?
They're going to compete on price and fulfillment, and some retailers already compete on just those things. But I do think the world of shopping is changing rapidly, changing in ways that we have not seen before, we've not predicted. I think, adapt or be ready for a world you don't especially like. So I would encourage folks to adapt.
So yes, as someone that has been, I mentioned the intro, PayPal, I mean, you've been in the internet for eons, Max. Do you like what you see in AI? Is it being rolled out responsibly? Do you like the changes you're seeing on the internet, to the very foundation of the internet? Do you like any of these things, or are you worried about some things?
I'm sort of a perennial techno optimist, and so I'm also a computer scientist and engineer by training. And so to me, it's once again a playground of awesome new tools and building blocks to create new things. So I'm profoundly predisposed towards loving, like not just liking, but really enjoying what's going on. Affirm, my company, has been in AI in various forms of it, both machine learning, sort of the classical now known as classical AI, as well, of course, as some of the newer stuff. And so we built a business leveraging the latest discoveries in that domain, and it's done great things for us, for our customers, for people who borrow money from us. And so all this new technology that's coming our way, there is a good way and a less good way to use it. And it's up to the individual entrepreneurs and teams to put it to great use. And I think there are so many great teams, so many people that see a cool new tool, a building block, and say, that's the thing that I'm going to use to make my mark on the world, make so many lives better, just push us to the next place of abundance, success, etc. So I'm not worried, to be completely honest. For every bad actor, for every mistake, misbehavior, there are so many more people who are deeply motivated by just trying to make lives around the world better.
Is this generation of AI, Max, is it making the internet a better place?
I think so. I am, in a world of worries, the thing that I certainly expect, and again, I worry less than I think I expect and plan. The things like deep fakes, the sort of really indistinguishable from reality content that's generated to look real, but is something entirely not. It's a concern. I think we're going to need new, deeper, more serious forms of authentication. I think we're going to really care about verifiability. We're going to need to give people tools of detecting what's true news and what's being designed to sort of excite them into maybe behaviors that they won't be proud of later. And so I think that's the darker part that I spend some time on. But again, through the lens of an entrepreneur's mind, that's a great opportunity. So someone's going to build the next verification service to rule all verification services. There'll be an AI company to bring a mirror to some of the deep fakes and say, no, that's not real. In the world of augmented reality, I will have a pair of glasses that will allow me to look at images and videos and say, that's not real, that's generated. And so it's always easy to get scared and sort of try to look for a unelectrified dark cave from where you can finally hide from all the ills of society. But it's much more fun to imagine what tool you can bring to bear to combat the whatever darkness scares you.
I don't know what this says about me, Max, but my X feed is filled with robot videos. Elon posting robot videos of his own. Those seem to work well, but I've seen other videos of these humanoid robots trying to cook an egg. They can't do it. They fall apart, run into a mirror. I mean, some of these videos are ridiculous. Are you a big believer in the humanoid being a major contributor to the economy, and is it all coming for our jobs?
I don't think it's coming for our jobs. I think, so I'm a huge believer in this notion that AI and embodied AI is a collection of tools for us to lead better lives, to do more. We're all going to be smarter because these systems have PhDs on any given topic. They can educate us, they can bring us along, they can help us be more decisive. Once we get to robots that can cook an egg, which I think we're a few steps away from, just because it's a much harder problem. Bits are inherently easier to manage than atoms, and we're a little bit farther away from managing atoms. But we'll get there too. It will open up our world to do more interesting, more intellectually stimulating jobs. And there will be someone who will lament the loss of their manual labor. But I think it's pretty similar to sort of, it used to be real. I would hammer a piece of metal with my hammer, and that was real work. And now we have these machines that just do die cutting and casting, and that happened a couple times in history, and we've always done better for ourselves as a species. So I'm not at all worried about the loss of jobs. I do think the robots are coming. I would definitely invest a few serious cycles into making sure we don't end up in the sort of a Skynet universe. Not so much because the robots will evolve consciousness and want to kill us all, but because there are plenty of people out there who would want to wreak havoc by breaking into these robots' operating systems and doing bad things. So security is important, safety is important. I think we're going to solve those problems.
I wanted to get some thoughts on leadership, Max. You and I always talk about earnings. We got shot of accounting. We talk about profit margins, but we could talk about some leadership things here because we are at an all-day event. Here's one for you. You've seen the evolution of tech from the early 2000s to now. What would surprise your younger self about the world today?
I think one of the more important traits in a leader, and certainly in a technology entrepreneur, is you can't ever stop being surprised. As I try to make a mental list, like the question isn't what surprises me, it's sort of what surprised me the most today. There's always something unbelievably cool going on. I just saw the news that Waymo will take me from San Francisco to San Francisco airport, which I couldn't do 2 days ago. It's like the greatest thing ever. I love Waymo. It's like the robot car that gives you full privacy, and you sort of ensconced in the back and feeling like you're in a clamshell just traveling the world. Now it can take me to my next flight, which is so exciting. And I did not, so when I was in college, my roommate was involved in a project to do a self-driving car through the desert somewhere, and there were no roads, but also no real obstacles, just drive. And they drove for like 6 miles and the car crashed, and it was terrible. And I remember thinking, man, like, will we ever have self-driving cars? We have self-driving cars that can get on a highway, get off the highway, deal with the airport traffic, drop me off to my gate. Like, that's amazing. And tomorrow will be something else that'll just blow my mind. And like, you have to have that willingness to just have your mind blown every day, because that's when you also find ideas like, well, what would be cooler if we built that, and then you can build it.
Max, are there any pivots in your own career that stand out to you as particularly meaningful?
My most important pivot was pivot back. Yeah. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but so obviously I sort of lucked or maybe worked my way into this PayPal thing that Peter Thiel and I started, and worked with some really great people in the process, and sort of defined myself as this financial services entrepreneur in my early 20s. After the PayPal journey was over, the one thing I told myself is I'm not touching financial services ever again, because how can I possibly beat that? The Sophomore Act cannot be comparable to the Freshman Act. It'll never work. No more financial services. And I meandered through the desert of anything but financial services for a number of years. And I managed to start a company that Google acquired, so I wasn't entirely successless, but it was a bit, I sort of cut myself off from the very supply of the drug that apparently fuels me the best. So when I begrudgingly decided I'm going to go try to build another payments company in credit as it happens, it took me a year to fully commit. Sure, I'll build it. And my wife, who is much smarter and in most ways much better than I am, said, just wake up, man. Like, you are good at financial services. You foam at the mouth about the excitement of doing fair credit and underwriting and compliance problems you're going to have to solve. Like, no one is as boring as you, but you love this stuff. Go build it already. And so I started Affirm. And of course, it's been 15 years and I love every moment of it. And it's been amazing. Company's been quite successful, obviously. But the pivot back, thanks to some very not so gentle pushing in my family, has been the best.
Lastly, Max, am I wrong to think if you weren't doing Affirm, if you weren't in tech, you would be spending most of your time in biking? Like, what do you do outside of this gig?
I train as if I'm just about to go off and ride the Tour de France, which has not happened, but hope dies hard. You and I share a passion for fitness and a certain degree of obsessiveness around the right kind of vegan proteins.
Yeah, I'm actually a couple Hyrox gel packs into this to this day. We're going to keep it coming, though. Got a long day here at Invest. Max Levchin, thank you for your thoughts on Affirm, robots, and I'm glad you don't think the internet's falling apart. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.